Minimalists.
Sometimes I'm at odds with what to do with the things that I want to get rid of, especially clothing. I have a hard time sometimes giving to Goodwill and Salvation Army and places like that because I know that any of their surplus sometimes, well, most likely ends up in other countries and messes up with their own economies. And I wanted to know if you have any suggestions for your listeners on where they can give their stuff to people in need, if there's places that they can look for in their own cities and towns that would actually benefit the people locally instead of abroad.
So Sheila, this is a fascinating question because I think a lot of people deal with this. Obviously, they regret the stuff they have now, or maybe the stuff was even useful for a period of time. It's no longer serving a purpose. It's no longer bringing them joy, and they don't want to put it in a storage locker in perpetuity. And so what do they do with it? And quite often the answer is, well, I guess I'll go to Goodwill, or even worse, I'll go to like the gas station. There's these little bins where you can throw clothes in there, and we're not really sure where it goes. It's just this hole that we take our stuff to. Mm-hmm. And I can understand the concern because it's not serving a purpose now, but she wants the stuff to maybe add value to someone else's life. What do you recommend to people like this? I mean, I know of a few resources that I've recommended in the past, but I'd love to know what you think about what people should do with their unwanted stuff.
Well, I have to say my new favorite thing to do with myself, my kids, is to go shopping at vintage clothing stores. And one of the best ways in kind of creating that beautiful array of choices is to consider selling your clothing that you don't need anymore to companies like RealReal. They'll give you the money for it. And I think that the money that I receive for most of my stuff, I give it back to larger charities that then are able to serve the population with many things. So it's almost like sometimes that really special pair of Levi's jeans might be worth way more money that you can make a bigger impact with by donating it to the charities that are out there to support, vulnerable families with the clothing and the needs that they might have. So I think there's a lot of value sometimes in the items that we have held on to for so long that the dollar amount might actually do more good. And then you're supporting a whole new industry that actually, I think, is something that the future of environmentalism is going to really be digging into, is that vintage clothing, secondhand shopping, don't buy new kind of thing. So I love that.
Yeah, my wife and I, there's a vintage shop we went to in Atwater Village maybe, I don't know, a couple years ago now, and I was just shocked by some of the pricing that these items demand, and it's because it is something that is vintage that someone wants. Of course, don't get caught up in the sunk cost fallacy. You may have paid $100 for a dress that is worth next to nothing now, and it's probably better to let it go if you can't sell it. My personal rule is a 30-day rule if I'm unable to sell something. Now, I like the consignment shop because RealReal is a consignment shop, right?
And some things aren't that expensive there too, by the way.
Right. And what I found is that even if I'm selling a piece of furniture or whatever, quite often consignment tends to be the best option because you're outsourcing that to someone else than if I were to just get on Craigslist or eBay. I know for the longest time, if anything was, I thought, worth more than $20, I would try to sell it on eBay, especially when I was trying to get out of debt because I wanted to get the money that I could from these resources I was no longer using so I could apply it to this debt and I could experience some freedom there. But by letting go of the stuff, eventually I realized that a lot of the things I couldn't sell at all. And so the resource that I often use, if you're unable to sell it or if a consignment shop won't take it, there's a website called donationtown.org. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but you can just go to the website and it will find local charities. Some of the big ones, of course, are going to be mentioned there, like Goodwill, Salvation Army, or whomever. But I found a lot of local charities where I've been able to donate stuff, even things like mattresses, where it's really hard to get rid of a mattress usually, but they'll use them for people who really need a mattress, or furniture, or different appliances, even clothes. You can go to donationtown.org. You can even find places that'll pick up larger items from your house, depending on what area you're in. You can do a sort of zip code search there, and I think that'll help you out a lot, Rachel.
And one more thing I can also add is a lot of the schools that we've served in the past, the families there are many families who are homeless actually, and if they're under this Title I kind of bracket, many of the families are living under the poverty line. So the principals of those schools tend to accept things. So in your local area, at crayoncollection.org, we actually have a school finder where you just enter the zip code and you can go in and find either a Head Start school or a Title I school, and you can contact them, and they will most of the time take almost everything that you've got. There's so much need out there. It's unbelievable. But like you said, if the good stuff gets sold, take the money and donate it to the charities that can then do more with it. But if you can't sell it and it's something that, you can donate locally, I highly recommend checking out your Title I schools nearby.
When my mother passed, it was my first foray into minimalism, and a lot of her things I knew I couldn't sell. They weren't worth anything, and so I was able to donate those to friends and family locally. But there were a few things I was able to sell, and I took that money and gave it to the 2 charities that helped Mom through her chemo and radiation treatments. And so, paying it back or paying it forward in a way to help other people in need. Yeah, I think that's really important. And the school thing, it's a need we don't even think about. But of course, it would make sense that they have the means to redistribute there and to people who are actually in need. So it's not just going somewhere that's going to be stored in a warehouse forever. Rachel, I'm going to send you a copy of our book, Essential. It's an essay collection, and it really talks about being intentional. One of the essays in there is about clothing. It's called The Favorite Clothes of a Minimalist, but it really talks about being intentional with the things we bring into our life, because then we have fewer things we have to try to sell or let go in the future if we're really intentional about with what we bring into our lives. So we'll send you a copy of Essential if you want the ebook or the audiobook version. Those are the most sustainable versions, I think you would argue. Then we'll be happy to send those to you. Also, if you want the print book, we're happy to send that to you as well, Rachel. Thanks for your question.